Welcome to an even deeper dive into the psychological profile of Dexter Morgan, one of the most complex and enigmatic characters in modern television. Dexter is not just a serial killer, he is an anti-hero who defies the boundaries of traditional morality. His behavior, motivations, and actions challenge our understanding of what it means to be good or evil. So what mental disorders might explain Dexter's behavior? How can we decode his psychological profile through his actions, thoughts, and relationships? Dexter is a character who lives in a constant internal battle. While he follows a strict moral code, his actions are fundamentally violent and morally ambiguous. Understanding the mental disorders that may shape his psyche provides a deeper appreciation of the character. In this detailed analysis, we will explore a range of mental health conditions that could explain Dexter's behavior and personality, each providing a unique insight into his twisted, yet rational worldview. Who is Dexter Morgan? Dexter Morgan is the protagonist of the TV series Dexter, which aired from 2006 to 2013 and later returned for a limited series. Dexter seems like a model citizen on the surface. He is a forensic blood spatter analyst working for the Miami Metro Police Department. He is polite, friendly, and seems to be a regular guy. He even maintains a family and a social circle. However, Dexter is not just a normal citizen. He is a serial killer with a dark secret. Dexter's life is split into two distinct worlds. By day, he is a dedicated forensic expert. By night, he is a killer who hunts down criminals who have evaded justice. Dexter's code of ethics, which he adheres to rigidly, guides his killings. He only murders those who are guilty of serious crimes but have not been caught by the legal system. This code is a form of self-rationalization, enabling Dexter to justify his gruesome actions as a necessary evil. But beneath his stoic exterior lies a tortured individual struggling with deeply rooted psychological issues. In this analysis, we will look at the mental health conditions that might explain Dexter's behavior, actions, and the psychological conflict that underpins his existence. 1. Psychopathy or sociopathy. What is psychopathy and sociopathy? Both psychopathy and sociopathy fall under the umbrella of antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, but there are subtle yet significant differences between the two. Psychopaths are typically more organized, cold, and calculating. They are skilled at manipulating others and can charm their way through situations to avoid suspicion. Psychopaths lack empathy and are emotionally detached from their actions, but they are often able to mimic emotions in order to fit in with society. They are typically high-functioning individuals who manage to integrate into society despite their deviant behaviors. Sociopaths, in contrast, are more impulsive, unpredictable, and prone to violent outbursts. Sociopaths generally lack the ability to form deep, lasting relationships and often live on the fringes of society. They are less able to disguise their emotions and are more likely to get caught due to their erratic behavior. Is Dexter a psychopath or a sociopath? Dexter demonstrates characteristics of both psychopathy and sociopathy. On the one hand, Dexter exhibits classic psychopathic traits. Emotional detachment. Dexter doesn't feel genuine emotions the way others do. His emotional responses are muted, and he frequently refers to himself as a monster because he doesn't experience things like guilt, love, or fear in the same way other people do. Manipulation. Dexter is adept at manipulating people to keep his secret. He creates false personas and controls the environment around him to hide his true nature. He manipulates his co-workers and family members, ensuring that they never suspect his criminal activities. Calculated actions. Dexter is methodical and calculated in his approach to murder. He spends significant time planning each kill, making sure that his victims meet certain criteria, and that he leaves as little evidence behind as possible. This level of organization and planning is more typical of psychopaths than sociopaths. However, Dexter also shows signs that align with sociopathy, particularly in his relationship with others. Impulsive behaviors. While Dexter is largely controlled, his rage and obsession with justice can lead him to act impulsively in some situations. For example, when he is confronted with someone who may have escaped justice, his emotions sometimes override his usual careful planning. Lack of long-term relationships. Dexter has difficulty forming meaningful, stable relationships. His romantic relationships, particularly with Rita, are often strained, and he is unable to connect deeply with people on an emotional level. While he does have affection for his sister Deborah and son Harrison, this is complicated by his inability to truly relate to them emotionally. Ultimately, Dexter's behavior aligns more with psychopathy than sociopathy, though there are elements of both in his character. He displays a lack of emotional depth, a capacity for manipulation, and a cool, rational demeanor, but also a tendency toward impulsiveness and emotional detachment. Comparison to real-life psychopaths. When compared to notorious real-life psychopaths like Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, and Hannibal Lecter, Dexter's behavior diverges from these individuals in certain key ways. Ted Bundy. Bundy was charismatic, charming, and calculated. He killed for pleasure and took delight in the suffering of his victims. Dexter, by contrast, does not derive pleasure from killing, but rather believes it is a moral duty. His killings are framed as a form of justice, not as a source of satisfaction. John Wayne Gacy. Gacy was known for his outwardly normal persona, which he used to mask his violent tendencies. Dexter, too, leads a double life, but he is more emotionally isolated, and his code of ethics sets him apart from Gacy's lack of remorse. Hannibal Lecter. Lecter is another example of a highly intelligent and manipulative psychopath, but his love of suffering and cruelty is far more pronounced than Dexter's. Dexter, while he may not show traditional empathy, does not take pleasure in the pain of others. He is simply trying to rid the world of criminals he believes have escaped justice. Conclusion. Dexter shows many traits of a psychopath but lacks the sadistic enjoyment and complete emotional detachment typical of full-blown psychopathy. His ability to form limited, emotional attachments to certain individuals suggests that he is more of a partial psychopath than a fully developed one. 2. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Dexter's childhood trauma is one of the most critical factors shaping his psychological profile. At the age of 3, Dexter witnessed the brutal murder of his mother, who was killed in a blood-soaked massacre. After her death, Dexter spent several days sitting in the pool of her blood, deeply traumatized by the event. This early trauma had a profound and lasting impact on Dexter, potentially leading to the development of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Symptoms of PTSD in Dexter. Several behaviors exhibited by Dexter are consistent with the symptoms of PTSD. Emotional numbness. Throughout the series, Dexter frequently states that he feels disconnected from his emotions and that he struggles to experience real feelings. He is detached from his inner world, which is a common symptom of PTSD. Flashbacks and intrusive thoughts. Dexter is often haunted by memories of his mother's murder. He experiences vivid flashbacks to the traumatic event, which disrupt his ability to focus and live a normal life. These intrusive thoughts also contribute to his obsession with death and the need for control in his life. Hypervigilance. Dexter is always on edge, constantly alert for threats. He is hyper-aware of his surroundings and constantly scans his environment for potential danger. This heightened state of awareness is a hallmark of PTSD, as the person feels the need to stay vigilant to avoid further trauma. How PTSD influences Dexter's behavior. Dexter's killing rituals can be viewed as an attempt to manage the trauma he experienced as a child. The meticulous planning and execution of each kill are ways for Dexter to exert control over a world that left him powerless and afraid. His obsession with cleaning the crime scenes and maintaining order is likely a way to cope with the emotional chaos inside him. For Dexter, each kill is not just a form of justice, it is also an attempt to exert control over the uncontrollable, a way to confront the trauma that has defined his life. This trauma also makes him increasingly emotionally detached from others as he struggles to trust anyone and let them into his inner world. 3. Alexithymia. The inability to understand and express emotions. Another psychological trait that Dexter demonstrates is alexithymia, a condition where individuals have difficulty recognizing and expressing their emotions. People with alexithymia often struggle to identify their emotional states, which makes it hard for them to process or communicate their feelings effectively. Signs of alexithymia in Dexter. Dexter's inability to connect with his emotions is one of the most defining aspects of his character. His emotional detachment prevents him from relating to others on a deeper level and leaves him feeling isolated and alienated. Emotional disconnect. Dexter often states that he does not experience the same emotions as other people. He is unable to understand or articulate his feelings, which leaves him feeling like an outsider in his own life. Difficulty understanding others. Dexter's lack of emotional insight extends to his relationships with others. He struggles to understand the emotional needs of his family and friends, which leads to strained connections and misunderstandings. Reliance on logic. Dexter often approaches situations with logic and reason rather than emotional intuition. He makes decisions based on what he believes is rational rather than considering the emotional consequences for others. Dexter's attachment issues are a direct result of his early 4. Attachment issues continued. Dexter's attachment issues stem from his early traumatic experiences, particularly the brutal murder of his mother when he was just 3 years old. This traumatic event disrupted his ability to form secure, healthy attachments, which ultimately influenced how he navigates relationships throughout his life. According to attachment theory, individuals develop different attachment styles based on early interactions with caregivers, and these styles influence how they perceive and manage emotional intimacy later on. Dexter's attachment style. Avoidant attachment. Dexter exhibits a form of avoidant attachment, a style characterized by emotional detachment and a fear of intimacy. He actively avoids close emotional bonds because he fears being hurt or betrayed. Dexter's inability to trust others and his tendency to keep people at arm's length are indicative of this attachment style. This is particularly evident in his romantic relationships, where he remains emotionally distant from Rita and struggles to open up about his feelings. Dexter's avoidance of emotional intimacy is likely a defense mechanism developed during childhood to protect himself from further emotional pain. Emotional detachment. Dexter's emotional detachment is a key feature of his character. He often seems distant and disconnected from those around him, unable or unwilling to form deep, meaningful connections. While he does care for his sister Deborah and his son Harrison, his attachments are fragile and complicated. He constantly struggles with the fear that these connections could expose his dark side, further reinforcing his need to keep his emotions locked away. Fear of vulnerability. Dexter's emotional walls are built on a profound fear of vulnerability. As a child, he was abandoned emotionally after his mother's brutal death, and this fear of emotional exposure continues to haunt him as an adult. Dexter's inability to trust others with his emotions leads him to compartmentalize his life. One part is devoted to his role as a forensic expert, while the other part is dedicated to his secret life as a serial killer. This split allows Dexter to maintain some semblance of emotional distance from the people he cares about, reducing the risk of his dark secret being exposed. Attachment to Deborah and Harrison. Despite his emotional distance, Dexter does form attachments to certain individuals, particularly his sister Deborah and his son Harrison. These relationships are complicated by Dexter's inability to fully connect on an emotional level. He genuinely cares about Deborah and Harrison, but his attachment is often expressed in protective and rational ways rather than through emotional openness. Dexter's relationship with Deborah is particularly complex as he views her as a source of stability in his life. However, his fear of revealing his true nature prevents him from fully allowing her into his inner world, which leads to tension and misunderstanding between them. His attachment to Harrison is similarly complicated. Dexter's desire to protect his son and keep him safe is one of the few instances where he exhibits any real vulnerability. However, Dexter's inability to express his emotions openly makes it difficult for him to nurture a healthy father-son relationship. He often grapples with his role as a father, unsure of how to balance his need for emotional distance with the responsibilities of parenthood. 5. Obsessive-compulsive traits. Dexter exhibits several traits associated with obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, particularly in relation to his ritualistic behavior surrounding his killings. OCD is characterized by intrusive thoughts, obsessions, and repetitive behaviors, compulsions, that individuals engage in to relieve anxiety caused by the obsessions. Dexter's obsession with cleanliness, order, and precision, along with his compulsive rituals, resemble the behaviors of individuals with OCD. How OCD manifests in Dexter. Intrusive thoughts. Dexter's obsessive thoughts revolve around justice and death. He is constantly preoccupied with the idea of cleaning up the world by killing those who have escaped justice. These thoughts are intrusive and persistent, often occupying Dexter's mind, to the point where they influence his actions and decisions. Rituals. Dexter engages in meticulous rituals before and after each kill. These rituals include preparing his weapons, setting up the crime scene with plastic sheeting, and cleaning the area afterward to ensure there is no trace of evidence. These repetitive behaviors are a way for Dexter to regain control over his environment and manage the anxiety that arises from his need to kill. The rituals are deeply ingrained in his psyche and provide him with a sense of order and structure in an otherwise chaotic world. Fear of chaos. Dexter's need for ritual and order is also driven by a deep fear of chaos. He believes that his killings are necessary to maintain balance and justice, and any deviation from his carefully planned rituals threatens this balance. If he fails to follow through with his rituals, Dexter experiences heightened anxiety and distress, which is characteristic of OCD. Irritability. Dexter's compulsive need to kill also results in irritability when his plans are more agitated. This behavior suggests that his need for killing is not only about fulfilling his moral code but also about relieving the anxiety and tension caused by his obsession. Dexter's OCD-like behavior adds another layer of complexity to his character. His rituals are not just about satisfying his need for justice. They are also a way for him to cope with the inner turmoil caused by his traumatic past. The more rigidly he adheres to these rituals, the more he can manage the anxiety and distress that permeate his life. Would Dexter want treatment? The answer to this question is probably not. Dexter is deeply comfortable with his role as a vigilante killer and sees his actions as necessary for maintaining order and justice. He doesn't view his behavior as a problem that needs fixing, which is a common trait among individuals with psychopathic or obsessive-compulsive tendencies. For Dexter, therapy might not be a desirable solution as it would challenge the core of his identity and his sense of purpose. What sets Dexter apart is his personal moral code. He is a killer, but he believes his actions are justified by his desire to right the wrongs of the world. This self-imposed code creates a complex moral dilemma, making Dexter one of the most intriguing and tragic anti-heroes in modern television. Conclusion. What mental disorders does Dexter have? 1. Partial psychopathy. Dexter exhibits psychopathic traits including emotional detachment, manipulation, and a lack of empathy. However, His ability to form limited attachments suggests he is not a full-fledged psychopath. 2. PTSD. Dexter's childhood trauma, particularly witnessing his mother's brutal murder, likely contributed to his development of PTSD. His flashbacks, emotional numbness, and hypervigilance are all signs of this condition. 3. Alexithymia. Dexter struggles to understand and express his emotions, making it difficult for him to connect with others on a deeper level. His reliance on logic over emotion is a hallmark of alexithymia. 4. Attachment issues. Dexter's traumatic past has left him with an avoidant attachment style, making it difficult for him to form close, emotionally intimate relationships. 5. Obsessive-compulsive traits. Dexter's ritualistic behaviors, particularly surrounding his killings, resemble OCD. His need for control and order, as well as his compulsive rituals, are key features of this condition. If you enjoyed this analysis, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below which character we should analyze next.